Hello and welcome to another episode of Property Perspective, where we dive deep into the trends shaping the property market. I'm Josh.
And I'm Michelle. Today we're focusing on renters, specifically the average length of tenure for private renters. We'll explore why this is changing, what it means for renters, for landlords, and the market as a whole, as some of the key factors driving this property trend.
Absolutely, so let's start with the basics. According to recent data, the current average length of tenure for private renters in their current home is 4.6 years.
Wow. And you've got to remember, this figure has been steadily increasing over the past decade. If we go back 10 to 15 years, the average tenures now range from 3.5 to 3.8 years. So this is now a clear sign that private renting patterns are evolving.
Exactly, but it's not just about the overall average. What we've got to do is look at the variations across the different age groups. Younger renters, for instance, they tend to move more frequently. The English Housing Survey data suggests that 64% of renters aged 16 to 24 spend less than 3 years in a particular property.
On the other hand, older renters are much more likely to stay put for longer. For those aged 35 to 54 and 55 to 64, around 68 to 69% have stayed in their current property for more than 5 years. That is a big difference.
It really is. And I think there's obviously some sort of clear reasons for this. For younger renters, life circumstances, they often change more frequently, whether it's leaving home for university, starting their first job, switching cities for better opportunities. These factors lead to shorter stays, but for older renters, the priorities are completely different.
Exactly. So community ties, links to access for schools, for families, become increasingly important as renters get older. Stability often outweighs the desire to move. Parents, for example, might choose to stay in the same property to ensure their children don't need to switch schools.
It's a bit of a pain, isn't it, I suppose? Yep. But it's not just about families. Like older renters who are closer to retirement, or they may have already retired, may value long-term stability over moving. With rising costs and challenges in the rental market, many renters are choosing to settle for the longer term rather than face the hassle and uncertainty of moving, selling, buying, all that sort of thing.
Sure are. Plus, we're seeing demographic shifts at the age of first-time buyers continues to rise. Many people are renting for longer, meaning the rental market now includes a greater proportion of older tenants who, as we've mentioned, tend to have longer tenures. This shift is definitely impacting the overall age.
It will, won't it, I suppose. But I guess another factor we have to consider is the role of market conditions. The rental market has been tight recently. We all know that. There's a significant imbalance between supply and demand. And for many renters, it makes sense just to stay in their current property rather than face the competition and really high costs, I think it is at the moment, of trying to move.
Absolutely. We're hearing more stories of renters opting to renew their leases simply to avoid the stress of searching for a new place. And it's no secret the rental market can be incredibly competitive, especially in those larger cities. Finding a suitable property that meets your needs and budget really has become increasingly difficult.
And let's not forget about landlords. For them, long-term tenancies offer stability, peace of mind, and a good tenant who pays their rent on time, looks after the property, is valuable. It's often more cost-effective, I think, for landlords to retain a reliable tenant than to face the expense of finding someone completely brand new.
That is a very great point. In fact, many landlords are now prioritising rental retention by improving communication, offering competitive rent renewals, and ensuring maintenance issues are addressed promptly. Happy tenants are more likely to stay put.
Exactly, they really do as well. Yeah. We've seen that here, haven't we, really?
We have.
So, but what does all this mean? I mean, for renters, landlords, and even policymakers.
Okay, so for renters, it highlights the importance of understanding their rights, budgeting for the long term, and communicating with their landlords about their plans. For landlords, it's a reminder to foster good relationships with tenants, to encourage those longer tenures, which ultimately do benefit both parties.
Absolutely.
And for policymakers, these trends could influence decisions on housing supply, rental regulations, and of course, affordability.
That's it. There's also an opportunity here, I suppose, for developers and investors. With longer tenancies becoming more common, there's increasing demand for rental properties that offer that high quality long-term living solution. Build-to-rent developments, for instance, are on the rise to meet this changing demand, especially in like the massive cities and things like that.
That is a very good observation, Josh. The rental market is evolving and the shifts in tenure length are just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. The key takeaway here is that renters are staying in their properties for longer, driven by changing demographics, market conditions, and of course, personal priorities.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic topic and one that affects so many of us, all different parties. So whether you're a renter, a landlord, or just someone who is keeping an eye on the market, the length of tenure is obviously a key metric that you want to watch.
So we would love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you noticed longer tenures in your community? What factors have influenced your own renting journey? Please share your comments, or should I say your experience in the comments below, or just send us a message.
Anyway, as always, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Property Perspective. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and of course, send us any questions or topics you'd like us to cover. Don't forget to join us with us next time.
See you next time.